introduction. I might indeed have a theme that might be true, but today I want to talk to you all about something you probably didn't learn in high school. Some of us might have, but I honestly doubt it. Today, as Americans, we're kind of forced to wrestle with the question of religion and government. How do they come together? But today, I want to take us back to the genesis of our nation, back to the American Revolutionary War, and explore the Christian roots that are there. We're all familiar with the Revolutionary War in some sense, I assume. I mean, we understand that America had to fight a war for its independence against Britain, but that's really as far as we take it. That's as far as we ever really need to take it. We have lives to live. We need to be considering what happened 250 years ago. But I do think that there's a value in going back and learning about that, thinking about that, because I think we've kind of forgotten our roots. The first thing we need to understand when we think about the Christian roots of the Revolutionary War is just the context and history of Christianity in America. America was founded in some part by Christian individuals. We know about the Mayflower. The Mayflower was this voyage of people from England who came seeking religious freedom. These were called the Puritans. They founded religious colonies in the northeastern region of America, and they were devoted to creating Christian culture. That was their whole thing. And they were so devoted to creating this Christian culture that they had what we would call a proto-theonomy. Theonomy means God's law. In this culture, they were so devoted to these Christian values and Christian principles that they would even use the Bible, use the Old Testament text for their civil laws. John McClendon, a religious philosopher writing for the Reformed organization, says this: "The New England Puritans implemented biblical law into their civil laws to a degree that was unparalleled in history." That just, I think, goes to show that this foundation that we had, these roots that we had in the early American context were very, very Christian. And this is the same context that the Revolutionary Fathers are dealing with. It's actually going to be said of the Revolutionary Fathers, they were the sons of the Puritans, some of them at least. And so this is the historical context that these people are certainly more connected to than we are today, but they are engrossed in it. The second thing we should understand when we think about the Christian roots of the Revolutionary War is the idea of Christian just war theory. This, as laid out by St. Thomas Aquinas, a medieval scholastic in the Catholic tradition, it boils down to 3 points. Essentially, in order for a war to be just, a war like the American Revolution, it must meet 3 criteria. The first is it must be done to defend innocent life. That's number 1. If your war is not done to defend innocent life, then it's not just. The second criteria is that it must be defensive. You can't go on the offense, you can't invade, you can't attack, you can't create violence, that would be wrong. But to defend innocent life and to use appropriate force to stop violence is just. And third, you must have a demonstrably just cause. You must have a list of reasons that you can say, this is why we're going to war. This is the Christian history, the Christian context that the fathers of the revolution are sitting in. This is the popular philosophy of the day. And we know this. We know that the people who were fathers of the revolution were thinking about this because many of them actually were Christian. Samuel Adams was pivotal in the Revolutionary period, and he was raised a Puritan. He was of that same fold that the early Christian settlers were. That he had the same devotions and commitments that they did. Paul Revere, who I really think doesn't get enough credit, we know him as the guy who rode through shouting, "The British are coming, the British are coming." He actually had a lot more to do behind the scenes in the Revolutionary War, but he was raised Puritan, so he had that background, he had that context, but he was also in later life converted to become an Anglican and was very, very devout in what was the Church of England, which now becomes the Episcopalian Church, the American English Church. And then George Washington, our leading general and first president, although he was very private about his faith, was actually very devout behind closed doors. He was also a member of the Anglican Church. So we have, even in the core group of people who were leading this revolutionary period, a commitment to these Christian values and principles. Now, that is not to say that they were only Christian. There is a diversity among them where some are theists, some are deists, some are of different religious and philosophical backgrounds, but there is a cohesion around this, and I think this is best demonstrated when we look at the Declaration of Independence. Has anyone read the Declaration of Independence all the way through? Maybe in history class, maybe in... So what my history teacher in high school loved to tell us, that the Declaration of Independence is actually just a breakup letter. It's basically the U.S. saying, look, Britain, this isn't working. We need to take a break. We're done. And the way this flows is it's a list of reasons why they're leaving, which meets criteria 3 of Thomas Aquinas' just war theory, which says you must have demonstrable reasons. That's criteria 3, but if you also know the rest of the kind of early period of the Revolutionary War, you know that it was instrumental to the American cause, that they were defending innocent life, think of the Boston Massacre, for example, and that they were responding to British violence. Think of the Battle of Lexington and Concord. The American position is that the British fired on us first, so we had no reason, we had no other option than to respond. That meets criteria 1 and 2. But I think the most demonstrative way of showing that this was a Christian movement is when we look at the Declaration of Independence, even written by a man who wasn't a Christian but was a deist. He is appealing to Christian principles. Multiple times, Thomas Jefferson makes appeal to God. He says, I commend us by nature's law and nature's God. He says that we're endowed with rights by our Creator. And then at the end of the Declaration, after he's listed all of these reasons that are leaving, he says, I appeal us to the supreme judge of the world, using very Puritan language to speak of God in this context. So I think this all goes to show that although this is not the primary leading cause, it's not the primary, or it's not the only leading cause, it's not the only leading context, there is a clear Christian root to the American Civil War. And to leave you with something, I want to ask, if the Christian faith and Christian values were so central to our Genesis, then what role should they play today? Thank you.